This first story comes from an emergency medical technician who worked a graveyard shift. What started as a routine call to an abandoned hospital became something far darker. This is his true account.
I worked EMS for most of my adult life. You learn quickly that midnight calls are rarely good, but some nights stick with you forever. This one did. It was late February 2013. A freezing rain had coated the streets, and the radio was mostly quiet. My partner, Vince, and I were parked outside a diner nursing bad coffee when dispatch came through. Unit 7B, possible medical emergency, Franklin State Hospital, East Wing. Caller reports faint voices inside. Franklin State had been closed for nearly 10 years. The city never tore it down, just fenced it off, waiting for funding that never came. We exchanged a look. Must be squatters, Vince said. The hospital sat on a hill outside town, surrounded by dead pines. The front gate was open, rusted hinges dangling like teeth. As soon as we drove up the cracked driveway, my radio popped with static. The dashboard lights flickered. Vince smirked. Old wiring. But his voice didn't sound confident. We parked near the ambulance bay. The old red letters still read emergency, though half had fallen. Inside, the air was stale, a mix of mildew and disinfectant that hadn't faded in a decade. Our flashlights swept over peeling paint, overturned gurneys, shattered glass. We started down the main corridor. Every sound echoed. Our boots, our breathing. And faintly, from somewhere ahead, we heard footsteps. For prank, I muttered. Still, protocol meant we had to check it out. We reached what used to be the East Wing nurses' station. A few old wheelchairs lined the wall. The intercom speaker above us crackled suddenly, a burst of static, then a whisper. Room 9, please respond. Vince jumped. You hear that? I nodded. The intercom was disconnected. The wires dangled out of the wall. Against better judgment, we headed toward room 9. The door was half open. Inside, the walls were covered in children's drawings, faded crayon suns, and stick figures. But the beds were all stripped, except one. On it lay a fresh blanket, perfectly folded. Vince frowned. Someone's been here. We both heard it then, a soft, rhythmic beep, like a heart monitor. But there was no power. Then a child's voice. It hurts. Vince swung his flashlight around. Empty. I called out. This is emergency medical services. If you need help, call out to us. Silence. Then the heart monitor sound stopped. We decided to check the generator room. Maybe someone had hooked power illegally. The stairwell to the basement was flooded halfway down, water black as oil. Our lights reflected tiny ripples, but no movement. Still, the beeping returned. This time louder, coming from below the water. Vince shook his head. Nope, not doing that. I agreed, but then we heard something else. A metal clatter, like a gurney being wheeled across tile. And over it, a woman's voice. Code Blue, East Corridor. That's when the lights in the hallway flashed on, just for a second, revealing silhouettes moving through the corridor. Doctors, nurses, patients, all colorless, transparent. Then darkness again. When my light came back on, wet footprints trailed past us up the stairs. Bare feet. We followed the footprints to the recovery wing. Room 23's door was shut tight. Something about it felt wrong, air colder than everywhere else. I pushed it open. Inside was a hospital bed still hooked to rusted four-poles. The sheet was pulled over a figure lying perfectly still. I thought maybe we'd found a body. I pulled the sheet back slowly. There was nothing underneath, just an indentation, shaped like a person had just been lying there. Then on the heart monitor next to the bed, a flatline tone screamed to life, steady, piercing. But the plug was in the wall. Vince backed toward the hall. We're done. We're calling this in. Before he could, the door slammed shut. The monitor went silent. And then a whisper, inches from my ear. Please don't leave me again. We ran. Every hallway looked different on the way out, as if the hospital was rearranging itself. Signs that once read exit now said admit. We turned a corner and nearly collided with an old gurney rolling toward us. On its own. It stopped just short. On the mattress was a child's drawing. Two stick figures holding hands, standing under a sun. One wore a white EMT uniform. That's when the fire alarm went off, ears splitting, echoing through every corridor. Red strobes lit the walls, but no sprinklers. We pushed through the main doors into the cold night air. And when I turned back, the lights inside were all on. Every window glowed, shapes moving behind them, shadows pacing, watching. Back at base, we filled out the incident report. Dispatch swore no one had called from Franklin State. No number, no recording, nothing in the system. Vince quit 2 weeks later, moved out of state, said he couldn't handle the noise in his dreams. I stayed another year. Every now and then, the radio would buzz with faint static. Sometimes I'd hear a woman's voice say, "Room 9, please respond." It always came at 3:17 a.m., the same time we left that building. Last winter, Franklin State finally got demolished. Local news covered it. Bulldozers, construction crews, the whole bit. They interviewed one of the workers. He said they found a single hospital bed still standing in the middle of the rubble. On the mattress was a child's drawing, faded but visible. 2 figures holding hands under a sun, one of them wearing a white EMT uniform.
That was the midnight shift. Some calls never clear from dispatch, and some souls never leave the ward. This next story comes from a retired coal miner in West Virginia who worked the night shift deep underground. It's a story he swore was true, one he never told until years after leaving the mines. This is his account.
My name's Walter Briggs. I worked underground for 34 years. I've seen accidents, cave-ins, machinery failures, but nothing like what happened in Harlan Mine back in the fall of 1996. Harlan was one of those old mines that should have been shut down years before. Management kept saying it was stable. The rest of us knew better. The walls creaked when the air got damp, and the tunnels whispered when the wind changed. I was on the night crew, 6 of us total. We went in at sunset, came out around 4 a.m. That particular night, our shift started quiet, almost too quiet. Even the machinery seemed hesitant to make noise. About an hour in, the radio crackled with a call from surface control. Briggs, we're picking up strange feedback on the line. You guys hearing that? We weren't. But a few minutes later, the sound started, a low, steady knocking. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks again. It echoed through the tunnels. Now noises underground aren't unusual. You learn to tell rock shifts from echoes. But this had rhythm, pattern, like someone signaling. We joked it off. Ghost miners, someone said. But then one of the guys, Ronnie, said something that made us all stop. What if it's from the old section? The old section, Shaft 9, had been sealed years ago after a collapse killed 5 men. Nobody went near it. Our foreman told us to ignore it and get back to work. But the knocking didn't stop. In fact, it got closer. By 2 a.m., it was right behind us. We followed the sound, even though every instinct said not to. It led us right to the barred gate of Shaft 9. The metal was rusted, half buried in rock. As we got closer, my headlamp flickered. Then Ronnie said, "Look." Behind the gate, in the dark, we saw light, faint, like someone's helmet lamp glowing. "Is someone in there?" I called out. No response. Then 3 knocks. Closer this time. Ronnie swore he heard voices, muffled but urgent, like men arguing deep in the rock. I couldn't make out words, but I swear I heard breathing. The air smelled wrong, like wet iron and burnt oil. We radioed the surface. No response. When we turned around to leave, we found the path behind us had changed. The wooden supports we'd passed minutes ago were gone, replaced by smooth rock. No one said it, but we all thought the same thing. The tunnels had shifted. That's when we saw the helmet. It was lying half buried in coal dust, rusted, cracked, with a nameplate still visible. J. Morris. One of the 5 men who died in the Shaft 9 collapse. The inside of the helmet was still warm. Panic set in. We retraced our steps, trying to find the main shaft. The air grew thicker, colder. And that's when the voices started again, clearer this time. "Get out now." It wasn't through the radio. It came from all around us. The lights on our helmets began flickering wildly. Ronnie's went out completely. He screamed. When I shined my light toward him, I saw a hand on his shoulder, pale, covered in soot, fingers too long. He swung around, no one there. But his jacket had 5 black handprints burned into the fabric. We ran. Every tunnel looked the same, but I could feel the air shift, meaning we were near an exit. I kept yelling for the others to follow my light. One by one, the voices faded behind us, until only one remained, whispering right in my ear as I ran. Don't leave us here. When we burst through the main gate into the cold night air, we collapsed on the gravel, gasping. Surface Control rushed over, said they'd been calling us for nearly 40 minutes. Our radios had gone dead. Ronnie quit that night. The rest of us stayed a while longer, but none of us went near Shaft 9 again. In 2003, Harlan Mine finally shut down. They sealed every tunnel, except Shaft 9, which they left untouched out of respect. Last year, they reopened it for redevelopment. Construction crews went in to clear debris. One of the foremen called me afterward, said they found something strange, a helmet, half buried in the rock. When they wiped the nameplate clean, it read W. Briggs. I told him that wasn't possible. Mine had been sitting on my shelf since the day I retired. He sent me a photo anyway. It was identical. Every scratch, every dent. And on the inside, written in coal dust, were 5 words. We never made it out.
That was echoes in the mine. Some places never forget those left behind, and some echoes never fade. If you worked underground, offshore, anywhere the light barely reaches, and you've seen something you can't explain, send us your story at titanparanormalstories@gmail.com. Because sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. Please like and subscribe for more.